Chapter 26 Malicious Intent. Wang Lin's heart raced as he contemplated the three spells. Following the incantation for the fireball spell, he formed the hand seal, but disappointingly, not even a spark appeared, let alone flames. After furrowing his brow, he tried again. Attempt after attempt ended in failure. Only once did a tiny spark appear, but it dissipated instantly. Talent. It always comes down to talent, Wang Lin smiled bitterly. He then practiced the earth split technique on a nearby rock. While the results were marginally better than the fireball spell, looking at the crack that was barely wider than his pinky finger, he couldn't help but sigh. Such a spell might fool ordinary people down in the mortal world, but in actual combat it would be utterly useless. The last spell he practiced was the gravity technique, which yielded similarly disappointing results. However, among the three, the gravity technique had the highest success rate. Without hesitation, Wang Lin focused all his attention on it. At its core, the gravity technique was simply about controlling objects from a distance. With higher proficiency and reaching the second level of key condensation, one could practice the object control technique. Upon breaking through to the fourth level after the third, one could go to the Sword Spirit Pavilion to select a flying sword. After practicing until nightfall, Wang Lin headed back. Having reached the first level of key condensation, his senses were sharper now. As he walked through the east gate, passing by the miscellaneous duties office, he heard a familiar voice from inside. "Senior Brother Liu, you originally assigned me to chop firewood, saying that 100 cat ties would complete the task. Why are you suddenly increasing it to 1,000 cat ties? I'm not a newcomer any more, and I've never skimped on showing you respect over these years. Are you trying to force me down the mountain? Is that what it'll take to satisfy you? Zhang Hu, don't say I'm making things difficult for you. With a year and approaching, life isn't easy for your senior brother either. Not only are you slacking off, but you're also trying to get me in trouble. The firewood you chopped when I delivered it to the Dan room, I got a good scolding. When I brought it back to check, you little bastard really outdid yourself. Out of 100 cat ties of wood, at least 30 were water-godding. Impossible. You're spitting blood to frame me. Just because I saw Xiaofu the I give you a talisman a few days ago, asking you to assign him easier work. How big of a deal is that? Everyone knows what kind of recorded disciple you are. Do you really need to force me out of Heng Yue Sect? You're being absolutely ridiculous. I quit. I'm going to report this to the elders, Zhang Hu shouted in rage. Zhang Hu, you forced my hand. Blame your bad luck for seeing something you shouldn't have. Today, you're not leaving this room. If the elders learn about this, I'll find someone to eliminate your entire family. The youth named Liu's cold voice echoed through the room, followed immediately by Zhang Hu's cry of alarm. Hearing this, Wang Lin's heart jumped, and he rushed into the miscellaneous duties office, kicking open the door. He saw Senior Brother Liu's face twisted with malice, dagger in hand, lunging toward Zhang Hu, who was pressed against the wall in terror. With death imminent and no time to reach Zhang Hu, Wang Lin instantly deployed the gravity technique. Fortunately, it worked, manifesting as an invisible hand that restrained Liu. By then, the dagger's tip had already cut into Zhang Hu's chest, drawing blood. Senior Brother Liu was horrified, feeling as if an immense force was crushing his entire body, preventing him from pushing the dagger any further. Zhang Hu's face was pale, with large beads of sweat running down. He shot Wang Lin a grateful look before quickly crawling away. The Liu youth stood frozen in shock before struggling desperately against the restraint. Wang Lin's forehead beaded with sweat, showing signs of losing control. This was his first time using the gravity technique to restrain a living person, and Wang Lin was clearly struggling. His opponent's resistance made control even more difficult. His body trembled slightly, but seeing that Zhang Hu was largely unharmed, he relaxed lightly, causing the gravity technique to weaken. Just as Liu was about to break free, Zhang Hu's expression turned strange. He glanced between Wang Lin and Senior Brother Liu, a fierce look crossing his face. He quickly grabbed the firewood axe and approached Senior Brother Liu. Senior Brother Liu's eyes filled with fear as he struggled more violently. Zhang Hu gritted his teeth, muttering, "A man must be ruthless. Senior Brother Liu, you forced me to this. You threatened to kill my entire family. Zhang Hu, what are you doing? Wang Lin's heart lurched as the gravity technique failed. The moment senior brother Liu regained his movement, Shan Hu raised the axe and brought it down on Liu's head. There was a sound like a watermelon being split. Unable to dodge in time, Liu's body convulsed several times before going still. The axe dropped from Shan Hu's hand with a clatter as he stared blankly at the bloody corpse at his feet, his expression complex. Wang Lin stood frozen. This was his first time seeing a bloody corpse. After a long while, he asked bitterly, "Shan Hu, you?" Shan Hu raised his head to stare at Wang Lin, his features contorted into a fierce expression as he enunciated each word. "Wang Lin, you saw it too. I didn't want to kill him if it weren't for you today. I would have been the one killed by him. All of this was because he forced me to it. He forced me." Wang Lin remained silent, never having imagined things would turn out this way. Shan Hu took a deep breath, determination filling his eyes. He went to the corpse and searched it thoroughly, pulling out a grey cloth bundle. Opening it revealed several hundred talismans used by recorded disciples for family visits, along with a thread-bound book, which Shan Hu glanced at before tucking away. He continued searching the room and eventually found a hidden compartment under the bed containing a roll of paper. After pondering for a moment, he turned to Wang Lin and said, "Wang Lin, I'll never forget today's kindness. I can't stay at Heng Yue Sect any more. Once they discover Liu's death, the investigation will lead to me. I'm taking these things with me. As for this talisman that started all this trouble, it must be valuable, or Liu wouldn't have wanted to kill me over it. You should have it." He held out the yellow paper to Wang Lin. Wang Lin didn't take it, sighing bitterly instead. Why did you have to, if you hadn't killed him just now?" Shan Hu's brow furrowed as he said, "Wang Lin, let's not speak of this any more. I've had enough of these past few years. If you still consider me a friend, take this talisman." Wang Lin accepted it sadly, saying nothing more. "Wang Lin, I must go now. This has nothing to do with you. When the sect investigates, they'll only trace it back to me, but by then I'll be long gone from Heng Yue Sect. The Shao kingdom is vast. I refuse to believe I'm destined to remain a recorded disciple my whole life." Xiang Hu's expression was complicated. After a long while, he slowly turned and left the room. Chapter 27. A Visit. Wang Lin watched Jiang Hu's retreating figure for a long while before sighing. Holding the yellow paper in his hand, he felt a deep sadness. Jiang Hu had been his first friend in the Heng Yue Sect, but now things had taken such a tragic turn. This talisman is truly the root of all this trouble. Wang Lin examined the yellow paper in his hand, and his expression suddenly changed. Though it appeared identical to the regular family visit talismans on the surface, he immediately noticed that the spiritual energy it contained far exceeded that of ordinary talisman. Moreover, it emanated a dangerous aura. While Wang Lin didn't know exactly what it was, he was certain it was something precious. After brief hesitation, Wang Lin tucked away the yellow paper. Looking at the corpse on the ground, he sighed inwardly. If the body wasn't disposed of, Jiang Hu might not be able to escape the sect's pursuit, given his current speed. Fortunately, his storage bag had enough space to hold a corpse. After cleaning the bloodstains and tidying the room, Wang Lin quietly left. He found a ravine in the mountains where he disposed of the body before carefully making his way back to his quarters. After reflecting on the events, he pushed thoughts of Jiang Hu aside and took out the talisman for careful study. At first glance, the talisman seemed no different from those used by recorded disciples for family visits. However, upon closer inspection, Wang Lin discovered that both its material quality and the vermilion characters drawn on it were far superior to ordinary talismans. Holding the talisman, Wang Lin pondered. He wasn't sure of its exact function, and after nearly dying from drinking the dew that day, he had developed a deep wariness of cultivation items and wouldn't use them rashly. Moreover, the faint dangerous aura emanating from the talisman made him even more cautious. After some hesitation, he stored it in his storage bag for future study. With that done, he took out the mysterious pearl and entered the dream space. This time he didn't focus all his energy on breathing exercises, but instead devoted some time to practicing the gravity technique. Having used the gravity technique on senior brother Liu earlier, he found it quite practical and was determined to practice it extensively. He began by practicing with a gourd as his target, attempting to grab it from a distance using the gravity technique. The gourd was light, and after several attempts he finally succeeded in lifting it. As soon as he achieved success once, Wang Lin immediately released the technique and started over. Wang Lin's thinking was straightforward. The gravity technique must become second nature, succeeding 10 times out of 10. Otherwise, even if it was powerful, it would be useless if he couldn't deploy it at crucial moments. By his calculations, his current success rate was only 3 or 4 times out of 10, or below his standard. Time flew by quickly in the dream space. When Wang Lin unconsciously felt the tearing sensation, he returned to reality. Without wasting time, he drank several large gulps of spring water the moment he opened his eyes and began meditation. Once his body was full of spiritual energy, he took a deep breath, his eyes flickering as the contents of the 3 key condensation verses echoed in his mind. Besides the mental methods for each level, the 3 key condensation verses contained 2 crucial incantations. These incantations were the true key to key condensation. The key condensation period had 15 levels in total. Except for the first level, which could be cultivated naturally, the remaining 14 levels each required their own activation incantation. For instance, he had completed the first level of key condensation, but without the incantation to unlock the second level, even if he mastered the mental methods for the second level, he couldn't advance beyond the first level. Wang Lin silently recited the incantation, and immediately his spiritual energy began to change. The change was subtle at first, but grew increasingly intense over time, until finally it was like boiling water surging through his body. Gradually, his spiritual energy became notably insufficient, dispersing intermittently throughout his body. Soreness, numbness, itching, and pain, various sensations arose throughout his body. He had the illusion that his body was riddled with holes, with spiritual power being the root cause. The 3 key condensation verses prominently emphasized one point. The activation incantations for each level weren't guaranteed to succeed. Talent, spiritual energy, opportunity, and other factors all played crucial roles. Some people might succeed on their first attempt, while others might need 10 or even 100 attempts. After a long while, the various sensations gradually dissipated. Wang Lin was drenched in sweat. The spiritual energy in his body completely dispersed. However, he knew from the 3 key condensation verses that this dispersal was temporary and could be restored with 1 meditation session. Though he failed to activate the second level, Wang Lin wasn't discouraged. This was merely a trial, and it proved that his current spiritual energy was insufficient for the second level. After all, he had only just completed the first level. He wasn't in a hurry with the spring water gourd in hand. He could continue cultivating at the first level until he reached its limit before attempting to activate the second level. This way, his success rate would naturally increase significantly. With this plan in mind, one resumed his day and night cultivation. His internal spiritual power gradually accumulated, and his success rate with the gravity technique slowly improved. He tried the second level's activation incantation multiple times during this period, but all attempts failed. After half a month in reality and 3 months in the dream space, one day while Wang Lin was practicing breathing exercises and waiting for the dream space interval time, seeing that it was still early, he hesitated briefly before silently reciting the second level's activation incantation, preparing to try once more. He had lost count of how many times he had tried, each attempt depleting all his spiritual energy without success. An hour later, Wang Lin raised his head wearily, his internal spiritual energy completely dispersed. He smiled bitterly and muttered to himself, "Failed again. Activating the second level is truly too difficult. Junior brother Wang, come out to meet me." A cold voice came from outside. The voice sounded familiar. Wang Lin stood up and opened the door to see a black-robed young man about 27 or 28 years old standing outside with an aloof expression. Black robes, Wang Lin's heart skipped a beat as he recognized the person. It was the Jan youth who had brought him Wang Zhuo and Wang Hao to Heng Yue Sect that day, and who had helped find Wang Lin's father at the bottom of the cliff. However, Wang Lin remembered that he had worn white robes then, but now in just a few short months he had been promoted to black robes. He suddenly recalled that during the testing at the foot of the mountain, when third to bring Hao as a medicine apprentice, he had mentioned that this person had reached a crucial point in his cultivation, and the sect leader, fearing it would affect his cultivation, had arranged for him to conduct the tests instead. Chapter 28 Miscellaneous Duties. Among the purple, black, white, and red robes, black represented exceptionally high strength. Unable to discern the other's cultivation level, Wang Lin respectfully said, "Wang Lin pays respects to senior brother Zhang. Congratulations on your promotion to black robe." The black-robed youth glanced at Wang Lin, his expression softening slightly. "A month ago I successfully entered the 5th level of key condensation. You actually had something to do with it. If I hadn't discovered that wind dye while searching for you, I wouldn't have broken through so quickly." Wang Lin was stunned. "Senior brother Zhang, that suction wind dye on the cliff can aid cultivation?" The black-robed youth nodded. "When you reach the peak of the 4th level of key condensation and activate the 5th level's incantation, you can go there too. You'll understand its effects then." After speaking, he looked Wang Lin over and continued, "Junior brother Wang, your talent is ordinary. This is something you cannot change. But since you've become an inner disciple, you need to work even harder at cultivation. I see you currently have no spiritual energy at all, clearly not having reached even the 1st level of key condensation. You should know that among current inner disciples, you're probably the only one who hasn't reached the 1st level." Wang Lin was startled internally, but maintained a bitter smile outwardly. "I'll take senior brother's teachings to heart and redouble my cultivation efforts." Then, smoothly changing the subject, he asked, "May I ask why senior brother Zhang has come here?" The black-robed youth smiled lightly. "Nothing major. A recorded disciple from the miscellaneous duties office has gone missing, and someone saw you there that day. I came to inquire about it." Wang Lin maintained a normal expression and replied candidly, "I remember that incident. I rarely go to the miscellaneous duties office, but half a month ago when passing by, that recorded disciple spoke disrespectfully to me. After I taught him a small lesson, he probably left the mountain on his own, fearing I might cause him trouble." Senior brother Zhang nodded slightly, giving Wang Lin an enigmatic look. "An annoying recorded disciple, it's of no consequence. I actually came today for another matter." After discussion between the sect leader and several elder uncles, they decided that the miscellaneous duties office shouldn't be controlled by recorded disciples. They want to assign an inner disciple to take charge, but all other inner disciples are busy with cultivation and unwilling to go. Wang Lin smiled bitterly. "I understand. The job has been assigned to me." Senior brother Zhang smiled and nodded. "Pack your things and head over today. The miscellaneous duties office is in chaos. You'll need to reorganize it thoroughly." After speaking, he clasped his hands in greeting to Wang Lin. As he stepped forward, a crystalline small sword appeared, carrying him away like a rainbow, vanishing in an instant. Wang Lin's face showed helplessness. He didn't want to go to the miscellaneous duties office with so many people coming and going. His secrets could easily be discovered. Moreover, the regular work would seriously affect his cultivation time. But since he couldn't refuse, he returned to his room with frustration, packed his belongings, and went to the miscellaneous duties office. Upon arriving, he had made up his mind he absolutely couldn't stay at the miscellaneous duties office for too long. His only option now was to completely mess things up, making all the recorded disciples petition the sect leader for his replacement. With this plan in mind, Wang Lin cleaned out senior brother Liu's room, throwing everything except a bed and table into the courtyard. While doing this, several disciples gradually arrived at the miscellaneous duties office. They had already heard about Wang Lin taking charge, and were all nervous, especially those who had most viciously mocked him before, their faces pale with worry. Some wanted to help Wang Lin clean up, but after receiving one glare from him, they obediently stood in the courtyard, trembling like cicadas in winter. After finishing, Wang Lin unhurriedly took out a chair and sat down, coldly surveying the dense crowd of over 100 recorded disciples before him. He knew Heng Yue Sect had many recorded disciples, and these were just a portion more would return for work handover in the coming days. "You from now on chop firewood 500 cat ties daily. Wang Lin randomly pointed at someone he remembered had mocked him behind his back. That person was stunned and immediately put on a miserable face. Senior brother Wang, I used to work in the kitchen. I only know how to cook, not how to chop wood. Wang Lin rolled his eyes and snorted. Make it 1,000 cat ties daily. The person dropped to his knees with a thud, wailing loudly. Senior brother Wang, please be merciful. I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have mocked you before. But please don't take personal revenge. How can I possibly manage 1,000 cat ties? Can we go back to 500? The others looked at each other in dismay. They had expected Wang Lin to make things difficult. But this wasn't mere difficulty, it was clearly malicious revenge. Several recorded disciples in the crowd immediately shouted in protest. Everyone, don't listen to him. Let's go find the elders and ask them to uphold justice. This Wang Lin is too outrageous. That's right. Let's go to the elders and ask for another inner disciple to be in charge here. If they don't replace him, we'll kneel and refuse to leave. Exactly. Come on, let's all leave. This Wang Lin clearly has a vindictive expression, let's not forget. He only got into the sect by attempting suicide. How shameful. The voices grew increasingly intense until finally 80 or 90 people left the courtyard hurling abuse, wearing wronged expressions as they headed toward the main courtyard. Along the way, they shouted about seeking justice, claiming Wang Lin was making their lives impossible. Wang Lin leisurely leaned back in his chair, not stopping them. He sincerely hoped these people would succeed, and the sect leader would surely assign someone else here in anger, and he could focus on his cultivation. The remaining dozen or so people hesitated, wanting to leave but fearing what would happen if the protest failed. Wouldn't leaving now mean completely offending Wang Lin? Wang Lin wasn't in a hurry, waiting for the result from the main courtyard. Shortly after, the recorded disciples who had left returned one by one, looking dejected. This time they weren't shouting, but rather remained silent with despair in their eyes. Seeing their expressions, Wang Lin understood the attempt had failed. Quite disappointed, he thought to himself that he would need to create an even bigger disturbance. With this in mind, he pursed his lips and swept his gaze over the crowd, saying, "Listen well, all of you who mocked me behind my back, your young master here is exactly here for revenge. If you're not satisfied, go find the elders. Whoever can get me thrown out of the miscellaneous duties office, I'll thank them personally. Senior brother Wang, please be magnanimous and spare us." A disciple immediately begged. "Yes, Senior brother Wang, we were blind fools before. Please forgive us. I'll bow to you. Senior brother Wang, they all spoke ill of you back then, but I never did. I even defended you." Chapter 29. A Visit. Before that person could finish speaking, someone nearby angrily interjected. "Shower, you were the one who cursed the loudest back then. Senior brother Wang, don't listen to him, his insults were the worst of all." "Shao San, I'm your brother, you ungrateful dog. Just wait until you get back to your room, see how I'll teach you a lesson." Zhao's face changed as he sputtered in rage. "This is called sacrificing family ties for justice. Senior brother Wang, don't listen to these brothers. They're experts at playing good cop. Bad cop, they've tricked countless recorded disciples. Senior brother, I'm actually the one who truly never spoke ill of you. Senior brother Wang, this junior sister has been frail since childhood and can't handle heavy work. How about I come every evening to massage your shoulders? Would that be acceptable?" A rather attractive female recorded disciple pleaded pitifully. Among Heng Yue Sect recorded disciples, women were rare, making up less than 1/10 of the total. After all, men generally had the advantage in the willpower test. The few female recorded disciples naturally received star treatment and immense popularity. Some even managed to catch the eye of inner disciples by leveraging their natural advantages. At this point, another female recorded disciple batted her eyes at Wang Lin and said in a coy voice, Senior brother, you never gave me heavy work before. I only needed to serve him in the evenings. I know several sisters among the recorded disciples. We could all come to visit you in the evening. How about that?" As various voices clamored, everyone eagerly tried to tell Wang Lin they had never spoken ill of him. After listening for a while, Wang Lin grew impatient and shouted, "All of you, shut up! What nonsense!" He then pointed at someone and said, "You fetch water 20 vats daily. If you're not satisfied, go find the elders." The person trembled, stammering for a while. Seeing Wang Lin's expression grow impatient, he quickly put on a smile and nodded repeatedly. "You wash clothes 500 cat ties daily. Remember, if you're not satisfied, go find the elders." The person who was pointed at swallowed hard, their vision going dark as they nearly fainted. They mumbled, 500 cat. That's like all the clothes in the entire sect combined. You'll clean the grounds, the entire sect is your responsibility. Same as before, if you're not satisfied, go find the elders. You clean the outhouses. If I see a single fly in there, you'll be living there yourself. You'll gather herbs 500 cat ties daily. If you try to fool me with weeds, I'll break your legs, and expel you from the sect. Listen well, everyone, if you're not satisfied, go find the elders." All the recorded disciples looked at them with sympathy. 500 cat ties of medicinal herbs probably didn't exist in all of Heng Yue Sect's mountain forest. Wang Lin assigned tasks based on his memory of those who had mocked him, casually allocating work. Tireless, he soon finished distributing all the tasks. Finally, he hesitated, thinking to himself that these tasks were impossible to complete. They would have no choice but to go to the elders. That if the senior uncles above still wouldn't budge, that would be troublesome. To be safe, he needed to create an even bigger disturbance, making everyone realize that keeping Wang Lin at the miscellaneous duties office would be a massive mistake. With this in mind, he pointed at an unfamiliar face and said, "You're lucky your job is simple. Just collect gifts for me. Keep a detailed list of who gave what and when. Store everything at your place and bring it to me monthly. If you get greedy, you'll be expelled from the sect." That person joyfully dropped to their knees, kowtowing while repeatedly promising they wouldn't make any mistakes or errors. All the recorded disciples stared in disbelief. While you had always been secretive about such matters, this Wang Lin was brazenly demanding bribes. At this point, a recorded disciple suddenly stepped forward, taking out 3 family visit talismans from their clothes and presenting them with both hands, fawning, "These in your brother Wang, this is your humble servant's tribute." Wang Lin grunted in acknowledgment, took them and put them away, then asked, "What work did I assign you earlier?" "Fetching water 20 large vats daily." The person quickly replied, anxiety showing in their eyes. "Make it 5 vats daily," Wang Lin said unhurriedly. The person immediately lit up with joy, repeatedly expressing thanks. With someone taking the lead, the rest quickly sprang into action, about to come forward when Wang Lin leisurely stood up and said, "Everyone disperse. Those bringing gifts must follow the rules. Write down your current task and the task you want on paper. Give it to my designated person, and we'll rotate every 10 days." With that, he walked to his room without looking back and slammed the door shut. In the courtyard, people sighed deeply, some with angry looks in their eyes, cursing Wang Lin in their hearts, though none dared to speak out. They all left with dejected expressions. After they had all gone, Wang Lin came out of his room and carefully explored the entire miscellaneous duties office, finally discovering a storage room behind a door in a secluded corner. Though small, this storage room, after Wang Lin's inspection, while not entirely satisfactory, was the most secluded place available. He cleared out a space, locked the door, sat down cross-legged, and entered the dream space. Time flew by like a shuttle weaving through fabric. In the blink of an eye, 2 months had passed since Wang Lin became the manager of the miscellaneous duties office. Apart from the first few days spent arranging work for the recorded disciples, he devoted all his time to cultivation, completely ignoring their actual work. Whenever tasks went uncompleted, he would merely snort coldly, and the person would immediately offer up talismans. These 2 months had been frustrating for Wang Lin. His cultivation was constantly interrupted by recorded disciples coming to visit. He couldn't understand what the senior uncles and elders were thinking even after going to such lengths. They still hadn't replaced him. Chapter 30 Wang Hao. Perhaps I need to be even more outrageous? Wang Lin was ready to go all out to leave the miscellaneous duties office. He wanted to see just where these senior uncles' limits lay. In private, among the recorded disciples, besides the commonly used terms useless and shameless, Wang Lin had gained a new nickname, Black-Hearted Wang. Compared to the former senior brother Liu's Travel Weasel, this was a significant upgrade in status. After a year of cultivation in the dream space, Wang Lin's spiritual energy had increased several fold. Having reached the limit of the first level of Qi condensation, no amount of additional breathing exercises would increase his spiritual energy further. So one night he began attempting the second level's activation incantation again. After several consecutive failures, persistence finally paid off. He successfully broke through the first level of Qi condensation and entered the second level. Black oil once again emerged from his skin's pores. After cleaning himself, Wang Lin looked at his reflection in the water. His eyes now gleamed like lightning, and his whole appearance seemed somewhat different from before. He stroked his chin, thinking to himself, "Now I only have the incantation for the third level of Qi condensation. If I go to send Daju for the later ones, and he learns I've reached the second level, he'll surely ask questions. If I can't explain satisfactorily then, it could bring trouble." After pondering for a long while without finding a good solution, Wang Lin furrowed his brow. Sighing, he practiced the gravity technique again. After more than a year in the dream space, he could now succeed 8 or 9 times out of 10. Given this progress, Wang Lin decided to increase the training intensity, finding a large rock in the miscellaneous duties office to practice controlling with the gravity technique. Time flew by, and another month passed. Wang Lin's actions at the miscellaneous duties office had left the recorded disciples full of complaints. However, winter had arrived, and the sect had begun preparing for the year-end inner disciple competition. Additionally, this year marked the sect's decennial competition for recorded disciples to advance in rank. The top 3 positions would earn the chance to become inner disciples' apprentices. All recorded disciples were eagerly preparing, with various schemes brewing beneath the surface. As a result, the issues at the miscellaneous duties office were temporarily forgotten, with no one paying attention any more. Wang Lin felt quite disappointed about this. As for the inner disciple competition, he had no plans to participate. That time would be better spent cultivating in the dream space. On this day, heavy snow had sealed off the entire Heng Yue mountain. Goose feather-like snowflakes descended from the sky, creating a silver landscape as far as the eye could see, truly a sight of 1,000 miles of ice and endless snow. Wang Lin wasn't cultivating, but stood quietly in the courtyard. His gravity technique responded to his thoughts, like an invisible hand disturbing the air around him, causing snowflakes to scatter before reaching his body. Looking toward his home village, he remembered how, at this time in previous years, his parents would light a warm stove at home. He would read books beside the stove while his father carved wooden sculptures with his tools, and his mother would be busy preserving vegetables. Sometimes, when tired of reading, he would sit beside his father, watching him work on the wooden sculptures. When interested, he would even help out, father and son enjoying their time together. Besides these memories, Wang Lin also remembered the wooden tops hidden under his bed, which he would sometimes take out to play with neighborhood friends on the ice during the day. Thinking of these things, Wang Lin took a deep breath. Immortal cultivators needed to sever their mortal attachments. These things were all attachments that would affect cultivation. Wang Lin closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, they were clear. Among the many mortal bonds, he admitted he couldn't achieve complete detachment, couldn't sever them entirely, so he buried them deep in his heart instead. As he was reflecting, his expression suddenly changed slightly. Having reached the second level of Qi condensation, he had developed what the 3 Qi condensation verses described in detail as spiritual sense, an immortal's innate ability. Scanning with his spiritual sense, he detected Wang Hao approaching. Soon after, the courtyard gate opened, and Wang Hao, wearing a fur hat and coat, looked at Wang Lin in surprise. "Brother Tai Chu, aren't you cold? You're wearing so little while standing outside." "I divined that you were coming, so I endured the cold to welcome you," Wang Lin said with a light laugh. He truly didn't feel cold since reaching the second level of Qi condensation. He could clearly feel that his body was much stronger than before. Wang Hao laughed heartily, walked in and removed his hat, carefully looking Wang Lin over before suddenly saying, "Brother Taichu, why do you seem different from a few months ago?" Wang Lin joked, "Of course. I've already reached the second level of key condensation. I'm practically an immortal now." Wang Hao pursed his lips and walked toward the room, saying, "Stop bragging. Our talents are about the same. Even with the soul stealing and helping me, I haven't reached the first level of key condensation yet. You get out of here." Wang Lin didn't argue. He knew well that sometimes telling the truth made people less likely to believe you, while hiding it might actually raise suspicion. Since his relationship with Wang Hao wasn't particularly deep, he naturally maintained some guard in his words. The concept of becoming close friends at first sight was something Wang Lin didn't believe in for himself. "Wang Hao, what brings you here today? Isn't the Dan room keeping you busy?" Wang Lin returned to the room and poured his visitor a cup of hot water. Wang Hao took the cup, blew on it a few times before taking a small sip, and smiled. "You haven't come to collect your things from the Dan room these past few months. I've been keeping your share, so I brought it today." As he spoke, he took out a small package from his clothes and placed it on the table. Wang Lin's face showed a knowing smile. Without even glancing at the package, he waited for the rest of what Wang Hao had to say, not believing he would come just to deliver items. Wang Hao blushed slightly under his gaze before suddenly saying, "Brother Taichu, I hear you've been doing quite well at the miscellaneous duties office these past few months." Wang Hao spoke directly. "If I can help, I definitely will." Wang Lin poured himself a cup of water and took a small sip, neither confirming nor denying. A flash of embarrassment crossed Wang Hao's face. He moved closer and said in a mysterious low voice, "Brother Taichu, I've always known you were clever. To be honest, I know you have many family visit tale misnomes from the recorded disciples here. Could you lend me some?"